You know that old saying that truth is stranger than fiction? I think the same applies to terror. Truth is often more frightening than fiction because when it's happening in a novel or a movie, we can tell ourselves, psh, this isn't real, and I can totally see the zipper on the monster's costume. But when it happens in real life to real people, we don't have that luxury. That brings us to our topic today. Did you know that up until 2024, Colorado was the only state in the union that had little to no regulations in regards to funeral homes? So theoretically, any person off the streets could open a business and just start embalming dead bodies for burials. Enter Jon and Carie Hallford, the owners of the Return to Nature funeral home, or rather, former owners. Police say during the investigation of their funeral home, it was discovered that the couple accepted payment for services that were never performed over a period of more than 4 years. And then, on November 22nd, 2024, these two individuals, to put it nicely, pleaded guilty in El Paso County Court to 191 felony counts of abuse of a corpse. They're scheduled to be sentenced in April of 2025. They're already expected to serve between 6 to 15 years on their federal wire fraud charges, which they accepted a plea deal on, but if I'd have to guess, that's probably the least of their worries. So how did we get here? How did they abuse 191 corpses? Why? Find out about that, why Colorado was the perfect hotbed for fraudulent funeral homes, and, so I stay somewhat in the same realm as I usually do in respect to connecting true stories with fictionalized ones, we'll briefly talk about funeral homes and directors in the fictionalized horror space. Now, normally I do videos like these on the inspirations for current books or movies, but I thought I'd try something different with this video. There isn't a movie or book inspired by this horrifying event quite yet, but that will happen sooner rather than later. And who knows, you or I might be the one who writes it. In fact, to let you in on a little secret, I'm working on one right now, which is one reason why I wanted to do this video. I thought this would be an interesting topic for my fellow horror lovers out there. Even though this is real life and something horrifying, it's still kind of in the same realm as the horror stuff that we normally talk about. Anyway, let me know if you want more true crime stories like this by hitting the subscribe button and liking this video. If you want other types of videos, then let me know in the comments. All stories, even one such as this, have a beginning. Nearly 200 corpses didn't just show up in someone's basement for no reason. This one, you could say, started in 2016 when Carie and Jon Hallford established the Return to Nature funeral home. They didn't actually open for business in Colorado Springs until 2017, which is about 70 miles south of Denver. I would like to believe they used that time to prepare to properly run a funeral home, but as we're about to see, they didn't prepare anything. From the time they opened the business through 2023, the Hallfords faced serious financial and legal troubles. It's almost like they weren't qualified to run a business, let alone a funeral home. Funny how that works. By 2021, significant financial issues emerged, leading to legal actions. Amidst their troubles, the couple made the incredibly wise decision to purchase a second location for their business in Penrose, Colorado, about 30 miles south of Colorado Springs. Although in their minds, it could have been to sweep even more of their problems under a rug. So a good idea in theory, if you're a sociopath. Their fortunes continued as their funeral home's license expired on November 30th, 2022. A license they've shown that they should have never had, but I digress. Their situation continued to worsen as they faced lawsuit after lawsuit, including 2 civil lawsuits, one from Wilbert Funeral Services and another from Kinney & Company. By the summer of 2023, they stopped offering cremation services because they were outsourcing to another facility and they had to stop due to, I believe, them not paying. The fall of 2023 spelled the end to this horrible experiment. On October 6th, an investigation began after reports that a foul odor was coming from the funeral home. The Hallfords actually had the audacity to tell authorities and people who asked that the smell was due to Jon taking up the hobby of taxidermy. They resisted and gave excuses right up until the end because on October 13th, 2023, just a week after the investigation began, authorities removed all deceased individuals from the facility. It was then announced that just 4 days later, on October 17th, 2023, that at least 189 decaying bodies were discovered to be inappropriately stored in the Hallfords facilities. The FBI stated that the bodies were stored wrapped in plastic, placed in body bags, stored in cardboard boxes and plastic containers. This led to the arrest of owners Jon and Carie Hallford and sparked widespread public outrage and legal scrutiny. This case highlights serious concerns about funeral home practices and regulatory oversight. When investigators entered the funeral home in October 2023, they found abhorrent conditions with dozens of stacked bodies, with some that had 2019 death dates, and in 2 cases buried the wrong body. While the Hallfords promised customers to cremate or bury their loved ones, they instead sent fake ashes and fabricated cremation records to families. Some families received urns filled with a dry concrete mix, not the cremated remains of their loved ones, federal court documents said. On top of all of that, the 190 corpses had been left in a bug-infested building. I also read in several places that the police and other investigators had to put cardboard down so that they could avoid slipping on fluids that were on the floor. The Hallford story doesn't end here. It's really only beginning. I mean, basically all of the outlandish stuff they did was completed at this point. But let's go over more of the charges and what happened after the bodies were discovered. We'll continue where we left off in October of 2023 and finish off basically up to when I'm recording this in December of 2024. A lot can happen in a year, and they haven't even been sentenced for the worst of their crimes yet. This is a crazy story, man. So the rest of 2023 involved a lot of work for authorities in various government agencies, including the EPA. The remainder of October involved the transporting of bodies to the El Paso County's coroner's office. In November, the EPA started the process of cleaning up the property. Authorities didn't arrest Jon and Carie Hallford until November 8th in Oklahoma, presumably because they were on the run. They were arrested on 190 corpse abuse counts, over 50 forgery counts, 5 theft counts, and 4 money laundering counts, so we can at least say they're consistent in their scumbaggery. Families began being notified the day after their arrest, which I can't even imagine. I'm sure most had to mourn their loss again. In my opinion, unless they at least get the equivalent of life in prison with no parole, the Hallfords are getting off easy in this whole endeavor. Nothing will undo the harm they have done to the loved ones of the deceased, their community, and the trust that the funeral home owners are supposed to have with their families. A class action lawsuit that was filed shortly after the families were notified was decided in August of 2024, where the judge ordered Carie and Jon Hallford to pay $950 million. Unfortunately, there is zero chance that any of that will be paid, and that's not just me saying it. Many experts, including attorneys representing some of the families, have said that. One being Ramos Law, which is located in Denver, and a guy whose face I see on billboards and commercials everywhere. Not sure how good a lawyer a physician can be, or how good a doctor a lawyer can be, though. Too much school and not enough time to focus on one thing to be good at it. But anyway, he said there's no way they'll pay the court order, and I would assume if he doesn't know what he's talking about, then he's at least has a team of people surrounding him who do know what they're talking about. A lot of boring stuff happened next, with court dates and bond being set. The EPA did finally start demolishing the building at this time in January of 2024, though. They would finish in April. The next actual interesting thing that happened in February was that Jon and Carie Hallford both were released on bond. Afterwards, the victims confronted Jon Hallford and demanded answers. I don't think he gave them any because he doesn't have any, because as we're gonna see, they're not the most intelligent of people. On February 27th, Carie Hallford posted a $100,000 bond, was released with GPS and sobriety monitoring conditions. And then, about a week later, in true Hallford fashion, the ineffable Carie Hallford missed a sobriety monitoring appointment. It's a wonder that these geniuses got away with what they did for as long as they did. On April 15, 2024, the Hallfords appeared in federal court and pleaded not guilty. They were also indicted on charges of defrauding the government by obtaining $882,300 in COVID Paycheck Protection Program loans. They allegedly used the pandemic aid and customers' payments that were not used for actually burying your cremated bodies to buy a GMC Yukon and Infiniti that together were worth over $120,000. Laser body sculpting, trips to California, Florida, and Las Vegas, $31,000 in cryptocurrency, and luxury items at stores like Gucci and Tiffany, according to court documents. Throughout the summer of 2024, not much really happened other than just general court stuff. And then finally, on September 16th, 2024, as I stated earlier, our heroes, the Hallfords, finally did something intelligent. The first in a long time, if ever, in their miserable lives. They accepted a plea deal in federal court and are expected to serve between 6 to 15 years on their federal charges. Then on November 22nd, they also pleaded guilty in El Paso County Court to 191 felony counts of abuse of corpse. They are scheduled to be sentenced in April of 2025, as I said earlier. In some semblance of good news, a few new bills have been signed in Colorado since our friends the Hallfords did what they did. One strengthens the regulatory process to make sure the state has more authority to inspect funeral homes. Another, which goes into effect in 2026, would require funeral home directors, morticians, embalmers, cremationists, and natural reductionists to hold a professional mortuary science degree, pass a national board examination, complete a 1-year apprenticeship, and pass a criminal background check. Surprisingly, not required before. For those currently working in the industry without a degree, they could get a provisional license if they pass a national board test and have worked enough hours. Now, I went over the story of the Halfords today, but there are way too many similar stories for comfort. In my next video, I'm going to go over more of them. It won't be anything too comprehensive like this one, but I'm making this around New Year's. I've been sick with COVID for about 3 weeks. I barely have my voice back, and I won't be able to work on it much with my children being out of school and on break. So, in lieu of a normal video, I plan on doing one where I talk about and summarize even more horror-filled stories of people in the funeral business, including one that illegally sold body parts. So stay tuned for that one. Also, their Instagram page is still up. The most astonishing thing to me is they insinuate that they've been in the funeral home business for generations by saying on their profile, "Return to Nature Funeral Home, our family since 1938, green since 2017. I haven't seen anything that said they had been in the business since then, but they do show pictures of who I assume is Jon Halford's dad, leading us to believe he was in the funeral home business in the past. If he was, and if they had been in the business for generations, then that makes what they did even worse. At least if it was a cash grab and the Halfords had no idea how to run a funeral home, it would at least make sense that something like this would happen. I'm not saying it's right, they still deserve to go to prison. It just would make more sense that a person right off the street would do something stupid like this and not a seasoned veteran of the industry who literally would have grown up around it." Okay, so we're not just talking about real life doom and gloom today, we're going to look at just a couple funeral homes and directors from popular culture. Starting with The Autopsy of Jane Doe. Spoiler alert. A 2016 horror film that follows a father-son coroner duo who encounters bizarre and terrifying phenomena while examining the body of an unidentified woman found at a crime scene. As they delve deeper, they discover disturbing internal injuries, occult symbols, and supernatural occurrences that suggest Jane Doe is a vengeful witch from the 17th century. Their attempt to uncover the truth leads to a series of horrific events, culminating in their own deaths, while Jane Doe's body remains mysteriously unscathed, hinting at her dark powers still being active. Honestly, that's something I wish would have happened to the Halfords, and it would have been a really cool, based on a true story, but unfortunately that didn't happen. Another horror story featuring coroners is Autopsy Room 4 by Stephen King. It is a short story that was turned into an episode of the Turner Network television miniseries Nightmares and Dreamscapes from the Stories of Stephen King in 2006. The story is about a man who wakes up in an autopsy room after his body was found on a golf course. The man is pronounced dead and sent to an autopsy room. The man is paralyzed and is unable to move or scream, but he is conscious and aware of what is happening. He tries to get the attention of the doctors, but is unable to communicate. The entire story is from that man's perspective, and is very interesting. A funnier, less serious one is The Undertaker in Back to the Future 3. It's just a little cameo, but I've always enjoyed it. And we'll end with my personal favorite. The former world champion and WWE Hall of Famer, The Undertaker, and his manager, Paul Bearer. Real name, William Moody. Paul Bearer was not only a funeral director in WWE's storylines, but in real life he actually had a degree in mortuary science and had earned a certification as an embalmer and mortician. So, this professional wrestling manager was actually more qualified than the Halfords could ever hope to be. What a crazy world. It's now, once again, your turn to share. When did you first hear about the Halfords? Was it before you watched this video? Do you have any additional information regarding their crimes? Did I miss anything? Let me know in the comments. I'm always happy to learn more and correct any mistakes that I may have made. And would you like to see more true crime videos from me? If so, let me know by liking this video, subscribing to my channel, and telling me what other topics you'd like me to cover. So, until next time, take care, and thank you for watching.